Hey guys, welcome back. This is Bernardo from the BTNHD, and yes, iOS versus Android. Now, both of these platforms have come a long way for the past couple of years, with iOS and Android being the two most used phone operating systems in the market. The iOS is very much Apple's software, and you either accept it or just find a different phone to use. With Android, it allows you to swap out one dialer or SMS app for another, and it also supports home screen widgets. It even lets you install custom launchers. Now, that's a few differences off the bat with these two operating systems. So let's dive in and see what else is different between iOS and Android. The interface design on both operating systems are unique and easy on the eye. If you have grown close to one of them, you may not care for the other. Apple's mobile OS embraces the more refined visual, whereas Google carries more of an impact to its design. Don't get me wrong, both are beautifully designed in their own way. Both Apple and Google offer a strong set of native apps to get you up and running, even though most of the Google apps are available for the iOS. Don't get me wrong, iOS and Android have email, maps, contacts, and calling, giving us what we need, but which one is better in performance? Most of us normally use third-party apps, and most of the big hitters are going to be found on both platforms. In terms of new app releases, there is still a bias towards iOS, dealing with Twitter's Periscope and Meerkat being two of the most recent popular apps. If you're ready to join the live streaming world, then you need to own an iPhone, because Periscope isn't supported on the Android side, and Meerkat recently released their app in the Google Store as beta. App permissions are also handled differently between iOS and Android. On Android, it's an all or nothing decision that you make when you install the app. For iOS, permissions like location and camera access are asked during the initial start of using the app. And you're also able to revoke them at any time. When talking about security, I have to give it to the iOS Touch ID. It has improved the experience of unlocking a phone or verifying a purchase. Various Android devices are trying to catch up with Apple's Touch ID. But Samsung is the only company to have brought fingerprint sensoring technology to Androids. With Android Lollipop, you get the ability to trust areas and even devices so that the PIN code is automatically disabled, making for more of a customizable and flexible security setup. As for stability and performance, the waters are muddled by the massive Android handsets and older iPhones on the market. It's perhaps fair to say that iOS and Android operating systems are both run very smoothly on the latest hardware, and some issues popping up on the latest builds. Okay, there's some extra points to pick out when dealing with iOS and Android. For example, like Apple Health versus Google Fits, Apple Pay versus Google Wallets, and Android Auto versus CarPlay. Soon there's going to be another iOS version and another new Android version in the market that we as smartphone users would be upgrading to. Which team are you leaning towards? I have to admit, with music and movies, it seems that Apple has the upper hand. Android doesn't have the same kind of desktop management software that Apple has with iTunes. Android users can, of course, tap into the Play Music and Play Movies, and while those apps are improving, they don't offer the same kind of control that iTunes has in managing your own personal media library. I barely started to scratch the surface on the iOS versus Android. Many times it's the small differences that count, such as positioning of the button, or the way a specific feature is handled, or trust on one particular app or another. Apple and Google have fundamentally different ideas about the way that software, hardware, and the web, user data, and privacy should be handled, making it a hard choice when purchasing a smartphone device for yourself. It comes down to who you trust with your data and choosing how you want to live your digital life across smartphones, computers, and the web. And that's it, guys. iOS versus Android. Which one do you think will win? Which one is better? Let me know at the bottom of the comment sections. Don't forget about hitting that like button, because it does support the video as well as this guy. And I catch you guys on the next one. Peace out. Hey guys, thank you for watching the video. I do appreciate the support. I love when you guys give me all that feedback, all that good feedback at least. There's 2 more videos right here beside me. Yeah, there you go. Click on them. Go check out some more awesome videos. And also, don't forget about hitting that subscribe button. And if you guys need to reach me, go follow me at Twitter at BJ Tech News. I am always there answering questions and helping you guys out as much as I can. And I catch you guys on the next video, like right here. Yeah, click on it. Come on. Come on. You know you want to. Come on. Come on. Later.